Mexicans love the Feast of All Souls, and Marion Tavella celebrates it near Cuernavaca with 500 enthusiastic orphans.
Mexicans believe that the dead come visiting on the Eve of All Souls. It's one of the most important celebrations in the year, for children, for adults, for everyone.
On November the 2nd, Catholics celebrate the Feast of All Souls. Mexicans call it Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Weeks ahead of the feast, Marion Tavella and these Mexican orphans start preparing. The German-born art therapist has been working at the Casa San Salvador orphanage for more than 10 years. But for Marion Tavella, the Day of the Dead also has a personal significance.
I never thought I'd ever work in an orphanage. I didn't have a strong social conscience. Not until my husband died. We'd led a bohemian life. I think it's human nature that people only appreciate what they have when it's gone.
For almost 20 years, Marion lived together with the artist Thomas Tavella in Berlin. When the doctors diagnosed cancer, their lives changed. For 10 years, she stuck to him through all the highs and lows. Then, in 1998, Thomas Tavella died. 2 years after she lost her husband, Marion Tavella emigrated to Mexico. There, she discovered a new purpose in life.
My husband died perfectly. My husband died as if it were something he was used to doing. He did it really well. And so I thought, if he can do it so well, I can't just sink into a depression. It wouldn't be fair to him. I thought, I'll try to reshape this, try to make something positive out of it. That was my idea, to give something back to life. That was the idea that made me come here.
¿De qué color es? Naranja, sí, es excelente. Los pétalos, sí, está muy bonito.
Working with the orphans has given Marion Tavella new faith in life. And the 52-year-old therapist feels comfortable with these symbols of death. The giant skeletons and funny skulls she makes with the children.
I think most Germans are shocked. When I'm raising funds, I show photos of my work. And when I show pictures of All Souls Day, even people interested in art say, ugh. But here it's natural and nothing strange.
Aber hier ist das einfach Teil und das macht, das ist nichts Komisches oder so.
The children like to make their decorations for the Feast of All Souls as detailed as possible. They've learned that from Marion Tavella. And that's how they think it should be.
I make the sculptures with Marion because it's our tradition. We've always done it. But some traditions gradually disappear. That's why we want to conserve them here in the orphanage.
The Casa San Salvador is part of a network of orphanages in Latin America and the Caribbean called Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos, Spanish for our little brothers and sisters. NPH is a charity that currently runs homes in 9 countries. Marian Tavella chose Mexico because she had been there on holiday. It also offered her excellent conditions for her art therapy.
I immediately felt at home. I was lucky because the directors made it possible for me to set up a workshop. They said, give it a try, and they gave me a free hand, so I immediately felt at home. And the children are very trusting. They helped me learn Spanish.
Every year before the feast, Marian Tavella takes some of the children to the cultural center in the nearby town of Cuernavaca.
¿Por qué, compa? Más le temo a la vida. Ay, ay, ay.
La Calavera Catrina, the elegant Catrina, is one of the most popular figures in Day of the Dead celebrations. There are many interpretations of the Catrina throughout Mexico. Marian is especially interested in how they are made.
One of the indigenous communities uses thread. They have a special wax that they apply to the objects and then press the thread into the wax. It isn't painted, it is colored with thread. I don't know if we can see that there. Yes, do you see? They press the thread into the wax with a little stick.
The Dia de los Muertos is a rousing festival to honor the dead. The Mexicans celebrate it from October the 31st to November the 2nd. At the Casa San Salvador Orphanage, Marian Tavella uses art therapy to treat children with behavioral problems. Most of the orphans come from severely dysfunctional families. They're often traumatized and anxious. Antonio is 15. He was abandoned by his parents when he was 3 and has lived in no fewer than 6 orphanages.
I asked him what colors he would choose to represent the past, the present, and the future. He took the future to mean his new life, so I said, yes, your new life. Then he chose black to represent the past, green to symbolize the future, and a variety of colors to signify the present. That's pretty accurate. It reflects his condition.
Here at the Casa San Salvador, Antonio receives psychotherapy. The art therapy Marian Tavella offers is especially popular. But she simply doesn't have time for all 500 children.
It's like putting out fires. You give your attention to where the fire is worst and try to help that child.
The house director, Agustin Velasquez, thinks highly of Marian Tavella and her work. He's delighted that she's on the staff.
She's a very responsible person, and she's very concerned about the children. She's learning all the time, and she always helps the children who need it most, the children with the greatest burdens and the biggest problems.
The nearby school has a good reputation, especially because it has developed a system of lessons that is tailored to the needs of the children. The teachers assume a much more important role for the children than at normal schools. For the orphans, they're almost replacement parents. However, the school cannot raise the funds to hire enough teachers, This year, they had to let some go. All the same, this system works and everyone considers themselves part of one big family. To protect children from being taken away from this community, adoptions are strictly rejected as an option.
I don't know what would happen to the children if they didn't have this place. It's easy to think they don't get enough love and attention here, that there's never enough to go around for everybody, that they would be better off with a family. But they don't have a family. Without this place, they'd end up sleeping on the streets.
10 minutes away from the children's village is an abandoned rubbish dump. Some 300 families live here in the small town of Milpillas. They used to earn their living sorting the trash. Today, each family faces a daily struggle to survive.
Hola, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días.
Esta es la segunda casa.
Hola, buenos días, señora. Soy Marion. ¿A poco vas a sextos?
No.
No.
Ella es la que va en sexto.
Ah, por eso dije.
The orphanage run by Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos provides meals for about 50 children here and tries to provide them with an education.
Pero pues aquí estamos durante el día, ya para dormir nos vamos para allá.
Muy bien. Muy bien.
Yes, it's true. It would be almost impossible to get by without the help of the orphanage. Their support is immensely important for us.
The following morning, Marian Tavella takes some of the children to the market in Miacatlan. Because the Day of the Dead is approaching, and they still need the right flowers for the upcoming feast. According to Mexican tradition, it's the cempasúchiles, the bright yellow flowers, which show the way to the souls of the dead. Their color and scent guide them from beyond to their relatives and friends. Hence, the cempasúchiles are also called Flor de Muertos, flower of the dead.
I love cempasúchilas because the scent hangs in the air at this time of year. You get cempasúchilas 10 days or a fortnight before the feast, and I find they smell so consoling.
The yellow cempasúchiles are now blooming in cemeteries all over Mexico. Soon the souls of the dead will come visiting. Gifts are set out for them on tables at the orphanage. Pan de Muerto is a special bread. And there are always skulls made of sugar. The Mexicans call these colorful tables ofrendas.
You might wonder what they are for. They're for the dead. And they love them. I decorate the tables with love and respect. It's my way of expressing the love and affection I still feel for them.
The children here learn the old Mexican traditions and customs. Today, however, the Mexican Dia de los Muertos is often influenced by the American version of Halloween. Hilda Padilla is a teacher and regrets that.
The dead themselves and the customs are very important to us Mexicans. But there's influence from other cultures, as you see here. For instance, pumpkins and ghosts. They are starting to creep in. But in our tradition, it's the dead who are important. That's who we honor in our tradition. The dead.
Esa es nuestra tradición. Y es lo que celebramos, a los muertos, ¿sí?
Va a parecer que ya se va a estar dejando. ¡Ay, qué bello, qué bello! ¡Pobrecitos los de la soprano!
Most of the children here are familiar with the grim aspects of death. Nevertheless, it is not a taboo subject. Unlike secular society in Europe, most Mexicans accept death as an everyday reality.
Death is closer because people here don't usually die in a hospital. Only, for instance, if someone has a heart attack and is rushed to the hospital and dies there, or dies in a hospital after an accident. But when people are ill, they don't die in a hospital. They die at home.
The dead come visiting on the Eve of All Souls. In her apartment, Marion Tavella also awaits her deceased relatives. She marks the way for the souls with Cempasúchiles petals.
I scatter them in front of the door and then into the bedroom so that they can find their way into my dreams.
Marion has arranged a table of gifts for her husband.
To complete the gifts for Thomas, we needed the bread called pan de muerto. I don't know how to bake, so I cut out patterns and sent them to my parents. And my father baked some cookies. He said he ought to start up a pan de muerto business. We'll light them this evening, and they'll burn throughout the night.
Marion Tavella has come to view Mexico as her home. She can't imagine living anywhere else.
Germany used to be my home, but this is my home now. Right now, I can't imagine leaving. I've gotten so used to the lifestyle. But mostly it's because of the children. My work with the children defines my life. For that reason alone, I can't imagine leaving. I've gotten used to living here.
Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. On the night of October the 31st, the dead children come visiting. They find their way more easily than the adults who only arrive on the night of November the 1st. The Mexicans open their homes and display the ofrendas for their deceased relatives.
This is the table of gifts for my father's visit. We've made his favorite dishes. Everyone here makes an offering to welcome their father, parents, brothers and sisters, or other relatives.
Throughout the night, the families serve hot punch and food to the dozens of visitors.
We're grateful that so many come. They're very welcome to see my father.
The ofrendas here include stuffed figures representing those who have died. One last photo before Marion Tavella and her colleagues return to the orphanage. For the children, the Feast of All Souls begins early with hot chocolate and cake. It's November the 2nd. Marian Tavella and her helpers have finished their work. The sculptures and skulls are all ready. The children are captivated by the figures.
Some people said they're super. How did you make them? Things like this increase the children's self-confidence enormously because it's admired by everyone in the orphanage.
For Marian Tavella, it's a busy day. Everyone wants her opinion. In the children's dormitories, there's a competition for the best ofrendas. They're judged in age groups. The children go to great lengths to make their ofrendas as beautiful as possible. The chaplain is an American, known to the children as Padre Felipe. He has placed a book in the church where the children can enter the names of their dead relatives.
Our tradition is that we pray for every one of those parents, deceased parents or grandparents or brothers and sisters by name. So you'll see during the Mass it goes on for often 15 or 20 minutes, just listing name after name after name. But it's a very special moment for the children who have lost their parents. They're all very quiet and attentive, listening carefully to hear the names of their loved ones prayed for at Mass.
All 500 children and the orphanage workers gather in the church. They wait for one particular moment, when they can sense that the dead have arrived. The souls of all their deceased relatives are invited by name. Marian Tavella waits for the name of her husband, Thomas Tavella. Suddenly, the church is very quiet.
Chofer José Manuel, enfermera Fátima Irasoque, Sergio López, Elian Luján, Margarita Luján, Josefina Barrera, Iserni Álvarez, Olivar Díaz, Rufino Díaz, Papá Hernández, Abuelita Catalán, Papá García, Martín González, María González, Luis Ortega, Julia Lara, Gabriel Lara, Jesús Sánchez, Eleazar Vázquez, Octavio Cruz, Ulises Cruz, Bea Olivos, Pedro Cruz, Manuel Galvez, Maximina Paredes, Thomas Tavella. A vivir siempre contigo en el cielo, por Cristo nuestro Señor.
I personally think you can feel the presence of the deceased. It's simply a completely different atmosphere.
Some of the children just write, mi papá, mi mamá, my dad, my mom.
They were left, lost, so young. They don't know the names of their parents.
Father Felipe declares the feast open. They all rush to the table to claim the biggest and tastiest gifts. The weeks of hard work ahead of the feast were worth it. Once again, the orphanage workers have given the children a day to remember.
I think it's right that we're here for the children. They need us. It's almost as if they're the children who are left behind. I just think the children need us. And I am grateful that I belong here.
The festival continues in front of the church. And the dead now join in the celebration with gusto. Soon they will return to the hereafter. But they'll be back next year for certain. And Marian Tavella will also be here to welcome them.